So, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of Pokemon Pokopia, the Pokemon franchise's first true life sim game. If you somehow haven't, I described it to my co-workers as Animal Crossing meets Minecraft with Pokemon, which, yeah, kinda succinctly summarizes it. Pokopia is a really good game, and also one I'm not actually going to be talking about all that much in this video, because, well, there's 1,000 excellent YouTubers out there who have already done that. In fact, I considered starting this video with a montage of various Pokopia review thumbnails / titles, all to the track in the Hall of the Mountain King. Because there's an interesting thing many of those reviews have in common beyond saying Pokopia's good. And that brings me to what this video is actually about. To be specific, it's the fact that the vast majority of these reviews are made with a tone of surprise. These YouTubers do not think that Pokopia was A, going to be good, or B, going to pop off the way it did. And, well, if your only exposure to the Pokemon fandom is via YouTube, that reaction makes sense. Before it was revealed that Pokopia was the highest scoring Pokemon game on Metacritic, the only conversations I saw about the game were people complaining about the price and making "haha, Pikachu's dead" jokes. And this general, pre-release dismissiveness Pokopia received kind of pissed me off, because unlike everyone else on Pokemon YouTube it seems, I always knew this game was going to be big. No, actually, Pokopia being a massive hit was insanely predictable if you actually touch grass. I want to circle back to what I said about those co-workers of mine I mentioned earlier. Said co-workers are 30-plus-year-old women who don't go online except to look up craft Facebook / Instagram and played Pokemon Go religiously for a few months. They would not buy a Switch 2 for winds and waves, as RPGs, even baby ones, are a bit too intense for them. But boy howdy, I knew they were going to gobble up Pokemon Pokopia like it was the best dish in an all-you-can-eat buffet. And they did. Switch 2 ownership increased exponentially in my company the second these people discovered Pokopia was a thing that existed. I know more people offline who have bought a Switch 2 for Pokopia than any other game. Because the thing that people shocked by Pokopia's success failed to consider is that the vast majority of people who play video games are not in fandom spaces online. They are my non-tech savvy co-workers who exclusively play games with no action in them and will primarily get a game because it looks cute. They are my straight friends, straight husbands who are too busy looking after their kids and going to the gym to even think about whining about poor frame rates online. They are the people who played 500 plus hours worth of Candy Crush and counting. And that leads me to the point of this video. Fandoms are only a narrow representation of the actual consumers of any piece of media, and the second you forget this, you are falling into a mind trap. A good example of this, and how it rates Pokopia, is that if you ever see a popular PokeTuber talking about their audience, the vast majority of people watching their content are male. In fact, gaming YouTube in general is very much dominated by men in terms of audience. Pretty much every modern study concludes, however, that roughly half of gamers are women, which tracks with my lived experience. When it comes to Pokemon specifically, 90% of the people I know who like it offline are women. So, kind of the exact inverse of the people who engage with Pokemon YouTube. And the thing about life sims and cozy games in general is that they are a genre that is predominantly targeted at, yet again, women. So, if someone uses Pokemon YouTube as their only frame of reference for how the general population feels about something related to the franchise, they are generally only going to see what half the fanbase thinks about things. And that's not even considering casual fans who aren't online full stop. Because yeah, they exist, and exist in large numbers at that. And these are the people that are Pokopia's primary audience, women and casual gamers. In fact, I know so many people in either one or both of those communities who have wanted a Pokemon life sim for literal decades. But Poketubers on the whole just forgot that these people who don't watch their videos existed. And really, they shouldn't have. I always knew Pokopia was going to be a success, as it appeals to communities, gaming fandoms, and even companies have a habit of forgetting about. Sure, it doesn't hurt that Pokopia is also a good game, but honestly, that was A, kind of obvious from the trailers, which had a lot of content and very crisp graphics, and B, quite frankly, I think Pokopia would have popped off even if it was kind of mid, since I cannot stress how much a certain circle of gamers have been begging for this game. Pokopia definitely isn't the only example of this phenomenon too. If your only reference to Scarlet and Violet's reception was seeing Pokemon fans whine about them online, you would probably assume the games were flops. But no, they're some of the best-selling titles in the franchise, sadly. Because outside of gaming circles, people care significantly less about graphics and performance than what serious gamers think they do. Yeah, maybe Gamer Joe, who buys each console on release day and completes a 100-hour RPG each week, might boycott Scarlet and Violet since they are ugly, underperforming messes. Offline Joe, however, who got a Switch on a whim to play Mario Kart with his girlfriend's kids and only buys one game a year, doesn't give a rat's ass about any of that. He gets Scarlet just because he can, sees Pokemon and goes, "That's neat, I wonder where Charizard is." You and I notice the games are hot messes that look worse than PS2 games, but Offline Joe doesn't even notice the frame rate drops in Casseroya Lake. And Offline Joes outnumber Gamer Joes significantly. Before I toot my own horn too much, I'm also not immune to this. As someone who hasn't brought Switch online, I remember being viscerally shocked when I saw the player statistics in Fire Emblem Free Houses for the first time at a friend's house. Due to the fandom landscape, I was convinced that Blue Lions and Black Eagle players were battling for dominance when it came to what route players picked, but no, Black Eagles were absolutely slaughtering the other two houses when it comes to the number of players, since I forgot about my straight friends' straight husbands, who chose Edelgard as their starting lord since Girl Pretty, played one route, and then completely forgot about the game. If you think my ability to admit that yes, I too am fandom pilled is endearing, or simply enjoying the video, like and subscribe. Blatant subplug over. In conclusion, people who are deeply entrenched in fandom spaces, especially fandom spaces that cater to a very limited slice of players, would probably benefit from remembering that they are not the majority of people who play said games, and never will be. If you're wondering why a remake of an old title has changed its art style to be generically pretty, or a sequel has streamlined things and made them easier, it's probably because the devs are catering to Offline Joe, and not you, a passionate and experienced gamer. Also, Pokopia is great, and if you can afford it, you should play it. Toodles!